The courtroom was silent. Everyone held their breath, eyes locked on the man standing at the front. Then the judge's voice cut through the stillness. Take it off. This is a courtroom, not a parade. Please like the video and subscribe. Because here, every silence holds meaning and every comment leaves a mark. His words bounced off the walls like a command soaked in arrogance. But it wasn't just the defendants he was judging, it felt like justice itself was on trial. All eyes turned to the man standing tall in front of the bench. He didn't move. His hair was neatly trimmed. His uniform, spotless. His eyes, calm but resolute. He wore the deep blue ceremonial dress of the U.S. Army. His white gloves were folded respectfully in front of him. And on his chest, gleaming in the dim light, was no mere accessory. It was the Medal of Honor. His name was Raphael Muller, a former tomb guard. He hadn't come to speak or to make a scene. He was there for a friend. The family of a fallen comrade was fighting for the benefits they were owed. Raphael simply stood there to show they weren't alone. But the judge couldn't look past the medal. I said, take it off, he shouted again. No unauthorized insignia in my courtroom. Raphael lifted his chin slightly. His eyes met the judge's. His voice was steady, calm. Your Honor, this isn't an insignia. It's the Medal of Honor awarded in combat. It's not decoration. It's remembrance. The tension in the room thickened. A few veterans sitting in the back began whispering. One Marine even half stood before a bailiff gently guided him back down. The judge narrowed his eyes. This isn't Arlington. You're not guarding a grave. This is my courtroom, and I'm giving you an order. But Raphael didn't move. With all due respect, he said quietly, you may run this courtroom, but this medal isn't yours to command. It belongs to the memory of those who can no longer speak. I wear it for them. Then silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The judge's face flushed red. He slammed his fist down. If you won't comply, I'll hold you in contempt of court. That's when an older man stood up quietly from the back. His uniform was faded, but his medal still shone. His hands trembled as he adjusted his coat. Your Honor, he said, voice rough but firm. I'm a retired colonel. That man has every right to wear that medal in every courtroom, every church, every street in this country. You're not asking him to remove a pin. You're asking him to forget every brother he buried. One by one, others stood. A young soldier, an older woman, a mother who'd lost her son, a widow clutching her husband's flag. They didn't speak, they just stood around Raphael like a living wall. The judge spun toward his bench, flustered. This is disorder. Everyone sit down. But no one moved. A woman stepped forward, holding a photograph. A young soldier smiled from within the frame. That man served with my son, she said. My boy never made it home. That medal, that honor, it's all I have left of him. And you don't get to take that from me. Even the bailiffs didn't step in. They just watched Raphael, silent, respectful. Then Raphael spoke again softly. Maybe your career was built on rulings and verdicts. Mine was built on blood and silence. You can erase my words from the record, but you'll never erase what this medal means. And then the applause began. Not loud, not long, but it was real. It came from the hearts of everyone in that room. A reminder that justice isn't just written in law, it's carried in conscience. Someone recorded it. The video spread across social media. Thousands watched. Petitions started the very next morning demanding the judge's resignation. Veterans and Gold Star families rallied around Raphael's quiet, unshakable stand. But Raphael, he just went back to his quiet path, back to his honorable walk. And with every 21 steps he took, he carried the memory of the ones who never came home. Everyone knew him as the ceremonial guard, always silent, always standing tall. But no one ever asked why Raphael Muller could stand by that grave for hours without saying a word. The answer was simple. He had lived through too much to speak about it. Some stories aren't meant to be told, they're meant to be carried. When Raphael joined the army at 19, he wasn't chasing glory. He was running. From a childhood without anyone, from cold bunk beds and empty evenings. His commanding officer was the first person who ever said his name properly, and the first to wait for him after a mission. Before he learned how to use a rifle, he learned what it meant to trust. That's where he found his first real friendship, first loyalty, first brotherhood. During a mission in the mountains of Afghanistan, they were ambushed. 5 went and only 2 came back. One of the ones who didn't was Tomas, Raphael's childhood friend. That day, a bullet tore through Raphael's leg. But he didn't drop the flag he was carrying. He remembers his knees shaking, but his hands never letting go. After that mission, early one silent morning, a general handed him the Medal of Honor. He looked Raphael in the eye and said, "This isn't for you, son. This is for the ones who can't speak anymore." Raphael never forgot that. That's why he never wore the medal like an accessory. He pinned it to his chest with care every single time. Because he didn't wear it for himself. He wore it for them. That's also why he chose to become a tomb guard. To walk in silence for hours. To stop every 21 steps and stand in silent respect. It was how he honored the pain he couldn't put into words. Raphael had no journals, no social media, no speeches, but his silence spoke louder than most people shouting. Every morning, as he pressed his uniform, he'd look at the medal, like a mirror, not to see himself, but to see the past. And the moment he pinned it on, he didn't stand alone. He stood with all of them. The day after the courtroom incident, an old army buddy named Gabriel sent him a message. "You stayed quiet and still made the loudest noise in the room, brother." But Raphael didn't reply. He couldn't. That night, he returned to the ceremonial grounds at Arlington. He walked in silence between the empty headstones. The sky was clear. The moonlight shimmered over his medal. To him, heroism was never something flashy. It was always wounded, always quiet, and always just a duty. The video of the courtroom went viral. Millions watched it online. But for Raphael, it was just another reminder. People were now begging him to speak. But he wouldn't, because some memories lighten when spoken. His weren't meant to be lightened. They were meant to be carried. But Raphael's past didn't end on the battlefield. The reason he walked into that courtroom wasn't just loyalty to an old friend. It went deeper, far more personal. And that reason was about to reveal the truth behind the medal he wore. To an outsider, Raphael showing up at court looked like a simple act of loyalty. Just a soldier supporting the family of an old comrade. That's what everyone assumed. But the moment the case file was opened, something darker started to surface, hidden between the lines. This wasn't just about a pension dispute. This case was about to expose a system that had quietly buried its own mistakes. The name on the file, Jonas Ortega. Raphael had been there the day Jonas died. But the official reports said otherwise. They claimed the two hadn't even been on the same mission. But Raphael remembered everything. You don't forget which body a bullet tears through, especially when that bullet was meant for you, and your friend took it instead. Jonas had been declared out of position guilty of disobeying orders, which meant his family was denied any compensation. But Raphael knew the truth. That day, Jonas didn't break rules. He saved a child. He acted on conscience, not command. And it cost him his life. The report had the wrong timestamp. The GPS logs had been wiped. The chain of command had been rewritten. Jonas's presence in the operation nearly erased. Because if the truth came out, it would expose a commander's fatal mistake. So Jonas was buried in silence. That's why Raphael was really there. Not just to support a family, but to speak for the ones the system tried to silence. That medal on his chest? It wasn't just for the fallen. It was for the forgotten. Inside the case file, Raphael found a folded piece of paper handwritten, trembling in his hands. A note. It had been tucked in by Jonas's wife, Sophia, without anyone noticing. "My husband was there that day because you called him. I left you the voice recording. No more silence. Raphael, please." And just like that, fragments of the past rushed back. He heard the gunfire again, saw Jonas smile as he fell. He remembered the last thing Jonas said while gripping his hand. "If one of us stays behind, don't forget me. One of us will be quiet, the other has to remember." Raphael reached into his pocket and turned on the small recorder Sophia had given him. The voice was grainy, but clear enough. "I'm not abandoning my unit. I'm going to get a child out of the fire." The commander said no, but "If I don't come back, he won't be able to look me in the eye. Tell Raphael. I'm not afraid." A single tear slipped down Raphael's cheek. It wasn't just a voice recording. It was proof of courage, and it had been buried, deliberately kept out of the courtroom, as if it never existed. That night, Raphael made a decision. He wouldn't stay silent. Not this time. When the court resumed tomorrow, he wouldn't just stand there in quiet protest. Even if he never spoke a word, he would slip that recording into the case file. Because speaking up for the voiceless had now become a duty even greater than guarding their memory. But there was something else. Something that didn't sit right. Raphael couldn't stop thinking about the judge's anger. It wasn't just about a medal. No one gets that furious over a piece of metal. No, this kind of fury came from fear. Deep, hidden fear. And Raphael was beginning to suspect that the real secret wasn't in the file, it was behind the bench. And soon, he was going to see its face. When reporters arrived at the courthouse that morning, no one thought it was a big deal. Just another case over a military pension. A few protesters. A few veterans. A loyal friend showing support. That's all it seemed, until the video hit the internet. It was shaky, low-quality phone footage, but it captured something real. Raphael Muller stood tall before the bench. The judge was visibly angry. And then Raphael said just one line. A single sentence that silenced the entire room. "You're not asking me to take off this medal. You're asking me to forget my silent brothers." The words hit like a bullet straight to the hearts of everyone watching. Within hours, the clip spread across social media. The hashtag Medal of Honor started trending nationally. Military forums, veteran communities, Gold Star families, and mothers who'd lost children in war all shared the video. And many of them added the same caption: "His silence speaks for all of us." The next morning, the courthouse steps were full. No shouting, no signs, just a quiet crowd, all standing the same way, back straight, heads high, empty pins on their chests, just like Raphael. Among them were 70-year-old Korean War vets and 18-year-old Marine recruits fresh out of boot camp. It wasn't a protest. It was a silent act of honor, and it kept growing by the hour. The media stopped leaving the courthouse. News vans lined the streets. Live broadcasts aired from outside. Retired generals spoke in studios. That medal isn't just an award. It's a responsibility, and we owe something to those who carry it, like Raphael. Raphael, meanwhile, said nothing. Reporters lined up to speak with him, but by 6 a.m. that morning, he had already returned to Arlington. He completed his morning walk, cleaned his medal, and pinned it carefully back to his jacket. That was his only statement, a silent walk. But in places cameras couldn't reach, that silence said everything. As public pressure mounted, the judge started to feel the heat. His name was Gregory Stanton. He had just 1 year left before retirement, a man known throughout his career for one thing: control. Old articles began resurfacing. In 2012, he blocked a veteran from attending a funeral due to uniform policy. In 2016, he'd thrown a wounded teacher out of court, accusing him of emotional manipulation. Now, the internet was asking, why is this man so threatened by honor? Why is he so afraid of soldiers? The answer came not long after. A former courthouse employee spoke to the press anonymously. It turned out Judge Stanton's father had been a World War II veteran, but he had never been awarded a medal. Stanton grew up with one burning question: why was my father forgotten? He'd resented the system for years, and then became part of it. He believed in rules, not ribbons. In procedure, not pain. But Raphael, by doing nothing but standing there, had shaken the foundation of that belief. Because some structures don't fall from being struck. They crumble the moment someone dares to look at them. Then came day 3 of the trial. Raphael didn't stand at the front this time. He quietly took a seat in the back row. In his hand was a recording device. The audio file Jonas's final words, given to Raphael by Sophia, was now part of the official evidence. It had been entered into the case. It was real, and now, no one could ever say Jonas Ortega wasn't there. His name would not be forgotten. Judge Stanton now had a choice: acknowledge the truth, or be crushed by the very order he spent his life building. But before he could speak, the courtroom doors opened, and someone walked in no one expected. The Secretary of the Armed Forces. In full dress uniform, he stepped forward and addressed the room. Any soldier who carries the Medal of Honor is a symbol of this nation's dignity. They answer to no one. They bow to no command, but conscience. Raphael Muller's stand is not only a legal moment, it is a moral one, and history will remember his silence. The room erupted in applause, this time louder, stronger, with the weight of everything unspoken finally being heard. And Raphael, he bowed his head, because for him, applause was never a celebration. It was a way to drown out the screams he'd learned to silence. But outside, thousands were speaking through their silence now, because Raphael had taught them how. Something had shifted in that courtroom. Not a law, not a gavel. Something deeper. The untouchable silence had cracked. No one shouted. No one argued. But something in the system had moved, because Raphael had simply shown up. That morning, Everyone waited for a verdict, but deep down, everyone had already made their decision. Everyone, except the judge. Gregory Stanton sat stiff in his chair, lips pressed tight, a single vein pulsing on his forehead. For years, he'd seen himself as the guardian of procedure. He believed justice only came through order. But now this soldier, this man who hadn't spoken a single sentence more than necessary, had undone all of that. In silence, the judge was unraveling. At one point, his eyes drifted to Raphael. Raphael wasn't looking for victory or applause. He sat like a man who knew what it meant to carry something heavy. His gaze was lowered, but the silence around him felt like gravity. If he had spoken, it would have broken the moment. But by staying quiet, he anchored it. Judge Stanton took a long breath. This court, he began, in light of new evidence, officially recognizes that Jonas Ortega died in the line of duty. All benefits and compensations are to be paid to his family immediately. There was silence, just for a beat. Then a soft ripple of applause. No one stood. No one cheered. Just slow, steady claps. Because this wasn't a celebration. It was the acceptance of grief. And Raphael's eyes filled with tears, but he never looked up. The hearing was over. As people filed out, the media swarmed Raphael again. Microphones in his face. One reporter asked, "How do you feel right now?" And Raphael gave only one answer. There was no verdict today, just a memory that wasn't forgotten. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, a press release came from the Ministry of Justice. Judge Gregory Stanton had resigned voluntarily. His statement read, "A judge's bench must carry not just the law, but the conscience of a nation." That day in court, it wasn't just a medal standing before me. It was the memory of a country, and I failed to see it. Later that same day, Raphael received an official letter from the Armed Forces Command. He had been granted the honorary title of Ambassador of Honor for his continued service as a tomb guard. From that moment forward, his 21 steps wouldn't just honor past battles. They'd represent the future of justice itself. Raphael folded the letter, placed it in his pocket. He showed no one. That morning, like always, he returned to Arlington. The cemetery was quiet. No one else was there. With the tip of his bayonet, he etched new lines into the earth. Then he stood, adjusted his medal, and began to walk. Every 21 steps he stopped, and with each pause, he whispered a name under his breath. Jonas, Thomas, Elijah. That walk no longer belonged to him. The nation, the families, the forgotten, they all understood now what it meant. Because Raphael had taught them, true honor doesn't bow to commands. True honor is silent, but never forgets. And just as the sun began to set, a little girl approached, holding her father's hand. She wore a tiny soldier's beret. Her eyes were wide. She held out a flower to Raphael. "My mom says," she whispered, "when you walk, my brother walks with you." Raphael knelt down, took the flower gently. He smiled, but said nothing, because some answers aren't meant to be spoken. Time passed. What happened in the courtroom slowly faded from the front pages to the back. The hashtags were forgotten. The videos drowned in the noise of newer scandals. But some things learn how to stay in memory. Because some stories aren't carved by noise, they're etched into us through silence. Raphael Muller never gave another statement, not even when he was officially named Ambassador of Honor. He didn't speak to the press. He didn't attend any ceremonies. He simply kept walking to Arlington Cemetery every morning, same time. Same steps, same pauses, same silence. But now, he wasn't alone. At first, one soldier began walking with him. Then came a mother who had lost her son. Then a young man in a graduation gown. Each of them brought their own silence to carry. None of them spoke, but when they met Raphael's eyes, they understood the wordless story he had been telling for years. That walk became a tradition. Every year, on the day the court decision had been made, thousands gather at Arlington. They take 21 steps. They stop. They bow their heads in silence. Each one remembers their own loss, their own memory, their own Raphael. But Raphael never joined the ceremonies. He still began his walk every morning at 6 a.m. Even when the sky was still dark, his footsteps were like light. But time wears on all of us. One winter morning, a cemetery staff member found Raphael inside the guard station. His uniform was crisp, his gloves neatly placed, his medal still on his chest, his head slightly bowed, and peace deep, quiet peace on his face. He was asleep. but it was a sleep he would not return from. The official report read, natural causes, but everyone who had known him understood the truth. Raphael had completed his duty, and he had left in the most silent way he knew how. His funeral wasn't marked by trumpets or banners. He had left clear instructions in his will. Send me off the way I lived quietly. But I never said those who walk after me must stay silent. Let them tell their stories in their own silence. That day, it felt like the earth itself held its breath. Hundreds walked, some more medals, some held old letters. One small child placed flowers on Raphael's grave, the same girl who had once handed him a flower years before. She was grown now, but in her memory, Raphael had never changed, a silent, strong shadow who never bowed. Years later, visitors to Arlington Cemetery now pass by a small sign. It reads, "This path is remembered as the 21 Steps of Honor, Ambassador Raphael Muller. Welcome to the place where silence speaks the loudest." And sometimes, if you're there early in the morning, you might see a shadow walking the path, shoulders steady, steps slow but sure. Not the silhouette of a guard, but of a man keeping watch over a memory. He may be gone, but the steps he left behind still echo in all of us. Because true honor isn't earned through command, measured in applause, or written in history books. True honor is what a man carries in silence. And some stories don't need words to be told forever. Please like the video and subscribe. Because here, every silence holds meaning and every comment leaves a mark.